What is up, Guardians? So today we're gonna be going over something I want to talk about for quite some time. If you've been a long time player of Destiny or new to the game or anything like that, of course we have like subclasses 3.0 and all that good stuff in the game. We've had the mod system reworked. We've had, weapons were reworked long ago in the past. Then we had the origin traits added. And today I'm going to be talking about armor. Reason being, like, that's kind of like really the last thing that we haven't had in the game worked on. And so today we will be discussing like improvements from my perspective that need to be done to armor to make it more viable in Destiny 2. And I want to start this conversation off to preface that these are my opinions on what I feel would make the game better. Just things I've seen in other games that are either trying to be like Destiny or Destiny like games that I felt that these particular other titles did very well. And I think that, if Bungie were to implement these into the game, I feel that it would make armor more viable, because as it stands right now, from an armor perspective, armor for the most part is basically infusing for your high stat set of armor you probably had for forever. When Pinnacles became a thing, and when we figured out in the game how to get high stat armor. A lot of us have been sitting on the same set of armor for God knows how long, and we just infuse it to the highest light, and then just keep moving, because everything else in the game is pretty much, infusion fodder. And I know now with a lot of the vendors in the game have been reworked to the point where now you can focus weapons, you can focus armor. But I know I've gone through some testing with some of the new vendors with the focus armor. And I've, if you know how this works, or if you're new to the game, you can go onto your Ghost and spec for, let's say if you want a discipline build, for example. And you probably maybe or maybe not seen videos, but they're basically in columns. So if you go to spec for discipline, you're gonna try to get a spike in discipline when you focus it. Well, I've kind of seen I've tested with Crucible, a couple other things, and it's a hit miss sometimes. And like, you spend a lot of material trying to really get a high stat armor piece, and you have characters or vendors in the game like Ada 1 that carries vendor sets every single week, rotating. And it's maybe, and as of recent, I've been watching it and things like that. And you guys know I do the Banshee videos, and I kind of like watch and kind of see and look at the Ada 1 vendor reset. And I think last week it's like one piece on one class in particular had a high 60 stat roll. I think this week, same thing. And it's not a thing where it's all the way cross. Same thing goes for Xur. Like, if you want new players to get into the game, to get into the whole build crafting and all the stuff that goes along with Destiny, we gotta have more guaranteed sources to get high stat armor. And that's going to be one of the things I'm going to talk about in this video. So first things first, I know as when it comes to blues in the game, when you get to a certain level, you don't want to get them anymore. And at this point, I think y'all can correct me in the comments if I can't remember, but I think it's either the soft cap or the power cap or something like that. You don't get blues anymore. It's supposedly what it's supposed to be, or it's something that's coming. I know I've got some blues drop from me here every so often or whatever. But I feel like, for example, if any of you guys ever play Outriders or anything like that, and some of the armor pieces on blues, they're not bad looking pieces, especially once you shade them properly. And coming from a game like Outriders, you're able to put material into it and raise the rarity. Why not allow us to do that with blues? Because there have been some cases where I've kind of like looked at some blue armor that's dropped from me. like for example in Lightfall, and they had some pretty high spiky stats to be blues. And if I could like infuse that, or if Bungie could bring back the needle system where we could, re-roll the stats on armor if we didn't get it the way we wanted to get it, bring something like that back. I know we have a lot of currencies in the game, but we need to find a different way just to expand that in a general sense when it comes to armor. So that's one thing I kind of feel like maybe we should be able to raise rarity on blues just to make them viable. Because I know for some of us, the end game is the fashion game in Destiny, and being able to turn those blues into purples to make them really more worth something. I mean, I don't know from a weapon standpoint if that would be viable from armor. I feel like it could be a thing that could be feasible, And then, so going back to the whole thing with focusing armor for all the vendors along, with your ghosts and stuff like that, I feel like, as I was saying before, I feel like that should be something that guarantees a 60+ stat roll when you go to those vendors. Because if not for that, what's the point of being able to focus armor, because recently in season 20, Bungie told us that they brought back legendary armor for the Vanguard, legendary armor for the Crucible, legendary armor for all the activities within the game. Well, if I'm trying to focus this armor or anything like that, the high chance of me getting a high stat specking my ghost, like I said, from just some testing that I did, it took me a couple, unless it was my RNG, it took me a couple rolls to really get some legit good high stat armor that I would want to just like hold on to. And, for that being a mechanic in the game that they put effort and time into, I think we need to either let's raise the chance of us getting a high stat armor. Like I said, for veteran players, it may not be such of a thing to do that, but for new players that are really trying to, you're getting into fire teams, or you're doing raids, or you're getting into in-game content, stuff like that, you want to spec into it and stuff like that. So with weapons, for example, this is going to go into my next point. With weapons, we have origin traits specific to, the seasonal activity, specific to Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit, all that good stuff, right? The concept that I was thinking of, and please, like I said, please feel free to chime in the comments and let me know what you guys think, or if you can add something to that. Hopefully, maybe Bungie sees this. I don't know. But I just feel like putting this out here and kind of trying to see what the Destiny community thinks of this. So what I'm thinking is, from an armor perspective, is doing a origin trait for armor, and primarily making the origin trait on armor like random roll. And they can be specific to the activity, maybe 3 to 5 different type of traits that can roll on armor. So example of that would be, say, for example, like trials. I'll give you a good example. Having a trait to be able to res your teammate faster, or, just some of like the traits that you sometimes kind of get on the guns, but then sometimes you can roll it, on the armor. And maybe if you can get like a stat bonus, not a stat bonus, but a set bonus. So if you're rocking the full set that's matching, let's say, whatever the perk is called for resing your fire team member, it speeds up the res for your fire team member. And it makes you want to wear your trials armor for that specifically. Now, of course, you have ornaments. You can ornamentize it if you want to, do the fashion thing. That's cool. That's fine. But I feel like it would make people want to grind for armor, for trials a little bit more. Yes, Trials armor does drop with high stats. They are kind of not part of the conversation too much because they do kind of drop kind of high when you do get them. But at the same time, it makes the armor viable. Same thing goes for just Crucible in general. Putting some traits on those armor pieces to make, and like I said, not really to make people wear a certain type of armor, but to make it feel important for that said activity, aside from just stats. Same thing goes for the same concept that we had when we had Gambit Prime. If you're new to Destiny, and you probably may not know what Gambit Prime is, they had specifically role armor sets that fit to different roles within the game of Gambit. And I wonder why they got rid of it. And I feel like it could be something that could be viable on the bringing back for a Gambit armor set if they were to do a version of what I'm talking about with this Armor 3.0. I feel like, you know, a lot of different things where it was like carry more motes of one of the things I remember. There was something about something for invaders. I can't remember all the traits and all that stuff for that particular one, but it was just like simple things like that to give people a role within the actual team when you were playing Gambit and stuff like that. And same thing goes for like Vanguard and stuff like that. Just kind of giving it more, giving the armor more meaning than just fodder. Because half the time when we get the armor, let's be real, everybody, when armor drops, you know, it's becoming shards. It's becoming shards. It's becoming glimmer. It's becoming, you know, every material within the game. It's not really something that unless you just somehow get a super high roll on that armor. Next thing, artifice armor. So I know artifice armor is a thing that was introduced with the dungeons, giving it an extra slot. I feel like artifice armor should not be particularly locked into dungeons. I feel like it should be something that you should get for Grandmasters and not really a thing where we have to always hunt for a weapon with nightfalls, but also wanting to get good armor rolls, get exotics, and get nightfall artifice armor. It could also be things where it could, some of the perks that we get on that they've given us in the past on the artifact, I feel they can re-roll those perks into Vanguard specific armor for nightfalls that can really be beneficial and make people want to be like, okay, I got to put on my Vanguard armor set because it's going to give me this advantage in the Grandmaster. It's going to give me this advantage by wearing Vanguard armor because again, it goes back to, it's just fodder. It's all about the weapons when it comes to Grandmaster Nightfalls. So why can't it be more about the artifice armor? Even same thing going for, in my opinion, give Trials artifice armor just to make something else to chase other than the armor. Even I would even go almost as far as to say Iron Banner. But with Iron Banner, I would probably make it more rare because you already get a lot of high stats from Pinnacle drops, and they drop pretty good, decent high stats on the Iron Banner armor. I would make Artifice for Iron Banner like really rare. Like when you get one, it's like, oh, it's a big thing if you get an Artifice piece from Iron Banner because it's a thing that everybody plays. And, you know, I think with Grandmaster, you've kind of battled through a Grandmaster or, you know, could have struggled with Grandmaster, and to get the Artifice armor piece, that would be the kind of like the icing on the cake for a Grandmaster. So those I wouldn't put so high. But again, that's just, like I said, that's just my thoughts on that in particular. But yeah, man, just like really putting more emphasis on armor in the game, because like I said, when it comes to a lot of the vendors around the tower, yeah, it's like, yeah, we could, everything in the game as far as the vendors go, yes, you've brought back the old armor, but what is it really worth right now? It's not really worth too much of anything. So I feel that incrementing, bringing in, I said that so wrong, bringing in some of these changes to armor into like an armor 3.0, I feel like would really, really be a game changer. I feel like it would make the player base and the community really care more about armor within Destiny 2. Even going to the degree of, even let's just say, for example, I know they said they're gonna do, and this is kind of like a side thing from Armor 3.0, like, okay, how we get exotics from lost sectors, right? How about being able to, because I know sometimes we get if you've done lost sector runs for a particular type of exotic and you don't get anything, you get material. So how about give us that chance? Let's say, for example, if we are in a lost sector and we're trying to get arms, and we may not get that exotic drop that we want, or the exotic dropping in general, right? How about giving us a legendary arm piece that drops at a high stat, so it makes the run worth playing? Because yeah, you may not get the exotic that you want, but oh man, I looked out and got like this super high stat roll arm piece that I been hunting for, and I finally got it just by chance of trying to get this exotic to drop for me that I'm also needing. So maybe doing that, like focusing the drops, maybe even doing drops in like that in public events, like incentivizing the community to do the heroic version of a public event, and you have the higher chance of getting a particular role for a particular piece of armor. Example of that is the Division. When you get into the end game of the Division, you can go to different areas on the map and you can farm in that particular area. You can farm weapons, you can farm armor pieces in particular parts of the city in different areas, and it's going to give you, that's going to be the primary reward you're going to get. And most of the time, and when I played it, like you got like a bunch of, like, if you got auto rifle or whatever, that's what you got a bunch of, or you got like arm pieces or whatever, the backpacks or whatever, that's what you got a lot of in the drop when you played content in that particular part of the map. And I feel like that could be something to make, again, making things matter more within the game to make people want to play public events, because it's all about preparing yourself, getting ready for the end game, trying to get that best min-max build from a build perspective, doing the most damage that you can, and all of that. So if you have more sources in the game to do that, and making, in addition to that, just making armor in general in the game just matter more, because right now, like I said in the beginning, it doesn't feel like it matters. If you've been playing the game for as long as I have, I've been playing since D1 Alpha, been playing Destiny from day one. I've had my high stat armor for years, and I threw it all in my vault. I'm like, this is going to matter at some point. And when people started to get into the mod game, when mods got introduced and really started to figure out the whole thing with the mods and all that stuff, it became viable. When D2 Armor Picker came around and all that stuff, it became viable. And I've had the same armor for years. So I feel like with adding origin traits to armor, I feel like would be a really big and a good change to making armor matter, and making you want to put on Crucible armor to play Crucible, putting on Vanguard armor to play a Vanguard Strike, or to play a Nightfall or a Grandmaster Nightfall, especially now with Vanguard Ops having higher difficulty and not just something you can just breeze through and things of that nature. It makes the armor more valuable. So, but again, man, I want to hear what you guys think in regards to my thoughts on Armor 3.0. Hopefully it will be a thing coming in the final shape that could be something new that we could hear about this summer, because of course we're more than likely going to have a state of the game coming in this summer, getting ready for for final shape next year. So hopefully that's something that could come come to be real in the game. So we will see. But again, man, I really appreciate you guys watching this and listening to me talk about this. Please make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up if you like this type of content coming from me. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you guys on the next one.